Welcome to Owl About Games, a podcast where we talk about all different aspects of board games, from design to mechanics to board game news, including updates and information for games from Open Owl Studios. I'm your host, Natalie, and I'm joined by Brendan. So sit back, relax, and let's talk Owl About Games. All right, so hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Owl About Games. Today we have Brendan, but we also have another special guest, Nathan, who is co-designer of Mythwind. So hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Natalie. Thanks for having us on your podcast again.
Yay. So obviously Open Owl Studios has been pretty busy recently, but before we do a big dive into the Mythwind reprint and expansion, let's just go over a little bit of what else our studio has gotten up to with Stone Saga and Stars of Ikarios.
Yeah, so excited to, well, I guess in a little bit we'll chat the Mythwind, like you said. Just a really brief update for those of you who are backers of Stone Saga. So we finished a really significant beta test. A couple hundred people were a part of it. Massive amount of feedback. So the team spent a lot of time last month going through it, working through it, identifying the significant areas of changes. And that's the plan this month. The plan this month is to implement all of the changes from the test, and then also to kind of finish development on the content for the expansions, and hope we'll let you kind of know where. Sorry, my dog just sneezed. We'll let you know where we're at in at the end of the month. But excited about all the progress there at Stone Saga. It's a really special game. So many kind of interesting interlocking mechanics that are all at play with one another. And regarding stars, some really fun milestones. A few weeks ago, we sent the files for the core box to the printers. Just got back this morning, kind of the review files, and then we sent Battles of Ikarios, and we also sent. We're just about to kind of send the Drones of Ikarios expansion files to the printer, and then we kind of start manufacturing. So we're kind of in the proofing process. It's good. So Stars is on track. Maybe even a little bit early, which should be pretty crazy for us. But we'll see where we're at. But until then, it's going quite well. So yes, I think that is a mini studio update about non-Mythwind things.
Little mini itty bitty thing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So obviously our main thing right now is the Mythwind reprint and expansion campaign that we have going on. This is the second Mythwind campaign. So how are both of you feeling so far? I think we're about just over a week into it now. So
I feel great. I mean, it's I feel like the momentum's stayed pretty strong. I know we're really close to 500,000, and everybody loves a round number, so that'll be exciting when we get there. But I think all of the feedback I've seen, people are really responding well to thematically what the expansion is going to be doing. And also excited to seeing people who missed it out on the first time and are getting in on it now. So yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, I think like we almost have 4,000 backers. I think like 1,500-ish around there are like new to Mythwind. And then the other group are people who have purchased one of, or who are purchasing an expansion or something. So that's really exciting. Just to kind of see the community of Mythwind grow more, and then something that if people don't end up getting it on Kickstarter, in Kickstarter there's a lot of kind of exclusive content that we have there. It'll also be showing up in retail, kind of across the world, in English speaking countries for retail as well. And so there's options to kind of pick it up there, really. And we'll get into this more, but we love the world, and we're going to continue to create new content for it.
For a second there, I thought you meant the Earth, like the globe. You love the
Oh
world.
yeah,
And I'm like, yes, I love them too.
I think we love the world too, but the Mythwind world.
Yeah. So yeah, with the campaign, there's been a few exciting things going on already. So we do have the unlocks that we do, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But we also have a huge amount of entries. I think we're like 3 pages in for our Mythwind painting contest, which the BGG page will close April 14th. And then we'll be doing daily battles to see which Mythwind figure wins and gets a free expansion of Friends and Family as the grand prize. And also like top mini. We also have a vote going on. One of our unlocks was a villager and then also a community villager that they can pick. So we will actually show this here. So on BGG right now, there is also a villager vote where you can pick A, B, or C on a poll. And by the end of the campaign, so by the 18th, we will tally the votes and see which villager will be created more into the game.
What villager did you guys vote for?
Oh, I was maybe B. Reptiles are not my favorite, and that guy looks like Gaston to me. I'm like,
I'm looking for the vote. Who did I vote for? I voted for a C.
Oh yeah.
But Nathan, who did you vote for?
I think I voted for B as well, but maybe I'll make the argument for A since no one else is. I think there's a lot of room to have interesting animals in Mythwind. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Another expansion.
Stay tuned.
So speaking of that, one of the biggest unlocks unlocks that are reveals that we did the other day, which has been hard to keep under wraps, was the designers for future characters in Mythwind. So do either one of you want to talk a little bit more about that?
What do you think, Nathan?
Well, I think that we were excited, obviously, to bring on some very established designers here. And in particular, just getting new perspectives on the design space. One of the fun things about Mythwind is that because there's a town that you're building, as long as you have new kind of fun creative ideas for characters, you can keep really expanding on it.
Yeah.
And so there's a great opportunity there to invite people with fresh ideas. And I'm really excited about the people we got.
And speaking of the people, so we have 3 designers that we brought on.
We should name them.
Yes, we should. So the first expansion is being designed by Nikki Valens. And Nikki is known for games like Mansions of Madness 2nd edition, Legacy of Dragonholt. They were a designer at FFG for a long time, and since then have been doing freelance stuff for a bunch of kind of really neat projects. So Nikki is doing one project, one expansion. So these will be 2 separate boxes. And then the second box is being co-designed by Daryl Andrews and Jenna Beasley. You'll know Daryl from games such as Sagrada. I think that's probably his most popular game. But if you go on his BGG page, it's like there's so many. He's been prolific. And then Jenna is kind of a fun partnership in the sense that Daryl and Jenna know one another, and Jenna is actually, I guess, like a YouTuber, content creator in the space. She has a platform called Board Game Garden. She really enjoyed Mythwind when we sent it to her, and it's great how this just happened to work out. So I don't know. I know Natalie knows both Daryl and Jenna. Local proximity. I don't know if either of you guys have anything else to say about it.
I mostly know that Daryl and Jenna are just super excited to work on it, and I'm pretty curious to see, like, since they are more local to me, to just see how how they get on with their designs, like backstage for once. So it's really neat for me. So anyways, back, like, let's back to the beginning of Mythwind. I was just wondering how you guys came up with the idea of Mythwind and how you guys ended up teaming up on this design together.
Yeah. So if you want Nathan's side of the story, he recently just did a podcast with, who was the podcast with?
Married and Bored. So
Married and
Christine
Bored.
and Angela from Married and Bored. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really great podcast. So make sure to go check out Married and Bored. But kind of my Cole's notes on the origin of Mythwind. Really, it's as simple as, like, I like playing games like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley, and I was curious why no one had tried to capture that feeling in a board game. Board games are often about competing with one another, winning, different winning conditions, victory points, or eliminating opponents, just a bunch of these things. And video games have a lot of that too. But then there's this whole kind of section of video games that is really concerned less with winning or losing, and more concerned about the experience that you have playing the game. And there's a genre of that would be called cozy games in the video game space. And so that's kind of like that was like really at the origin of the idea. And then Nathan and I had been working on Stars of Ikarios, the massive game back there. He'd been writing on it, and there was no way that I could do the design of Mythwind by myself. And so then I kind of hit up Nathan, and then he complicated the project times 5. So we'll leave that on his plate.
I'm not done complicating it either. There's more expansions to come. But
how did you complicate it, Nathan?
Well,
what's your relationship?
Yeah, the version of the game that Brendan brought to me, or the concept, was basically the farmer. And when we started developing this idea of a town that could be developed, it occurred to me that everybody who was developing the town could play their own unique role within the town. And on some unfortunate day, I suggested we make asynchronous characters, which that's the main thing that complicated, was creating all of these characters who have their own unique interactions and unique rule books and stuff, but obviously gives the game a lot of its identity now. So it's been a lot of hard work. But I think that one of the fun things to watch with the community is just to see which characters people gravitate towards. And it honestly seems quite balanced in terms of, like, I think if we ran a poll, I think it would be pretty spread evenly across the characters. So that's been very cool to see. And
then it also, like, it creates a really easy way for us to partner people like Nikki, Daryl, and Jenna, where, we were like, hey, these are the constraints. You see how big these trays are. Design a character that fits in with Mythwind, right? So it's pretty flexible in that way of a system where you can kind of keep on slotting in unique characters.
Well, in terms of gameplay too, if people want to keep playing the story, it's been fun watching people just being like, I played the Innkeeper for a few months, or a few seasons rather, and then I switched to this, and then I switched to that. And I don't know that I envisioned that people would be so flexible in their playing. Like, I thought they'd be a little more locked in. But people just are happy to kind of bounce around, and that's been really cool to see as well.
Yeah, there's no reason why, if like someone's playing the crafter and someone else is playing the farmer, a year or two of in-game time, they can't, like, just switch characters and just, like, reset those characters. Like, hey, I'm done with the farmer. Great. So you just reset up the farmer from scratch, reset up the crafter from scratch. Yeah, sure, you're, like, starting from zero progression, but your town's kind of built up in such a way where, you have a leg up, and you can still kind of continue the story that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and then, I mean, with this reprint, the expansion that's come out is the Friends and Family expansion, and the big mechanic that everyone was talking about is interaction. So this is now interaction between characters, which brings even more variety with what's already out there. And then so wondering how you guys came up with this idea to have an expansion centered more so on interaction.
So Nathan wanted to have more character interaction in the in the core game. And we chatted. He brought it up several times kind of throughout the process, but we went down the rabbit trail of we did the thought experiment of the extra amount of like work it would take and like just all that stuff. And suffice to say, we're like, hey, we'll table this for now. There's kind of potential some space. And I think personally, I probably underestimated people's desire for character interaction. And maybe this is just like the type of gamer I am. Like, even if I'm playing a game with just myself and my wife, we're actually fine to like, play games like with Merchant of Guild Explorers, right? Where it's like, it's basically a solo game. Terraforming Mars, we just don't play with any of the interaction components.
Like the take that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, we just like, we leave all that alone. So we're actually happy to kind of play like our solitaire. Most of Stonemaier game stuff is like pretty solitaire, like the Tapestry, right? It's like you're just kind of playing with yourself by yourself with a few other people. So I probably just completely underestimated people's desire for that interaction bit. I don't know, Nathan, you can maybe speak more to kind of like the community's outcry. Well, it's not outcry, is too strong of a word. Desire is probably the better word for it. But
well, I think thematically it makes sense that people are wanting to interact with the other players because of those unique roles. So if Brendan's playing the farmer and I'm the crafter, it'd be cool if I can go to him and buy some strawberries off of him or whatever. So I mean, thematically that totally makes sense. And I think interaction is kind of a funny thing because some games have direct interaction and some games have indirect interaction. And, in our game, the interaction really all exists in the town right now. Are you using that building? Okay, I'll have to go somewhere else, that kind of a thing. But it in that sense of like kind of building something together, it is great to feel like, you're helping me and I'm helping you. And there's that sense of community that comes out of that. And that idea really informs both the character interaction and also the villagers, which is all about this sense of a group of people working together to build something up. I mean, I'll carry on kind of talking about that as well, where with these people that exist in town, I think for me, I really wanted to give a sense of purpose to what you're doing in town. It's not necessarily just about, building something. You also want to be visiting with people. You also want to know who is in town and who is this part of this community that you're building. And on top of that, in building these relationships, we've also created a mechanic where the players can do that collectively, which is another interactive piece. So there's more kind of working together there. So the hope is that these characters give the buildings more identity. They give the town more flavor. And they're all going to have their own little stories that will play out as you get to know them better.
Yeah, because I mean, I find that obviously the two types of interaction is the ones between the asymmetrical characters, which other people like the community was obviously asking for, but the whole new aspect of pretty much you are interacting with non-playable characters like you would in a video game almost. And you guys have these characters and maybe some more to be revealed, but adding that and a whole new board and the socialization aspect and stuff. So I was wondering, like, when I was trying to think of different board games that might actually have this type of mechanic and interaction, I couldn't really think of it. So I was wondering what your inspiration was or your creative process of implementing this kind of idea apart from just the character to character interaction.
This is a great question. We went through a couple iterations of what it was going to be like to interact with villagers. I think at the core, we always knew that we wanted to have villagers that you could increase their friendship level with. I think that was like that was the core. It originally started out like, I think, less interaction, and then we had Nathan a couple of months ago. I think we had coffee at Starbucks. Yeah. It was the Starbucks, and then I think we just kind of like we just got
Sponsor, no.
we just kind of got we got going on a conversation. I think Nathan brought up the fact of like of doing something like this kind of like potluck or like gather action together, and then I think the actual mechanic of the socialization action is lifted from a game that is in development and maybe will never see the light of day. But I think that's where the actual like dice rolling element came in. I don't know, Nathan, where did this show up?
You've got a way better memory for these details than I do. I just know I wanted to chase that feeling of almost like in an old style like JRPG where you're building a party. Like I've always loved that idea of like interacting with NPCs, and then occasionally you'll talk to one, and it's like, oh, they're going to join your party, and obviously if they have their own story as well, that's a lot of fun. I also really like generational storytelling. So this isn't exactly that, but there's sort of this idea that over time, your interactions with them change.
If you want generational storytelling, buy Stone Saga. It's on GameFound now.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, one game I was going to mention, I don't know if you remember this one, Brendan, was Legacy, the Testament of Duke something or other. And that one you have like families.
I can visualize it.
Yeah. And so the game's very kind of procedural, but I do like that idea of like these interactions happen and then they create like new family members and then there's a new generation kind of a thing. This is kind of like shrunk down to one generation, but it's like we're going to get together and meet with this person and then we'll get to know them better. And then we kind of keep building on that, you know? So,
and a big addition that we kind of went back and forth. Yeah, it was this. Yeah. And Nathan was pushing for it. And it was a really good idea. Was the idea of like attaching characters to buildings, right? So when you build the printing press, you know, the villager kind of shows up on their board, and it's a sense of like, oh, hey, the town is being lived in. And kind of a neat thing that this does is, you know, in some ways it's like we gotta kill two birds with one stone, even though there's no killing in Mythwind. Catch two fish with one piece of bait. Was the fact that we could, you know, address maybe probably the biggest criticism of Mythwind of maybe the buildings not feeling quite unique enough in the game, and so we could use this area where, hey, we have these alternative buildings where, you know, a villager comes into play, where then we're introducing like kind of some new mechanics. So the printing press, Nathan, what's going on with the printing press here? I'm trying to remember this. Do you remember what this new mechanic is?
Do you mean the regular action or like the gather action or socialize action?
No. The regular action on the printing press that we're showing, because this is like,
I think you can swap two weather cards and trigger an effect if the the seasonal effect triggers.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the season, you get a production.
Yeah, so the end of season production we already had with the printing press, but then, you know, there's this kind of new mechanic where
end of the season you draw an extra gold card. That's what that is.
Oh yeah, sorry. But there, you know, the new mechanic with the printing press where you know you can just swap weather cards and trigger a weather effect is really neat. So yeah.
Yeah, and then just speaking of video games inspiration when you're thinking of NPC interactions, BioFoot78 here asked, have there been discussions on having stretch goals for video game adaptations?
So we actually don't have any stretch goals for this campaign. Just unlocks. But as far as video games go, not currently. Video games are very expensive to produce, and yes, so not currently. But hey, if it shows up and it's on the table, it would be great.
Yeah. So other than that, when I'm thinking of interactions, I'm wondering, as we've mostly seen them in video games, so couldn't really think of them in board games, but are there any interactive board games with NPCs that you guys like or have fond memories of? I mean, for me, it was always The Sims, but
it's interesting because like games like Sleeping Gods or Tainted Grail, like these are like really kind of big games with like lots of narrative. You're not actually really interacting with NPCs as much as you are interacting with locations, and at that location you might see a villager. This is a fun Natalie. This is a fun board game mechanic. We're not introducing this in any of our games.
I'm glad you guys came up with it.
So Taryn, if
live on air, you see us blowing
new.
Brendan's mind.
No. But I actually think like if you did some sort of open world style game where NPCs have such a significant element in gameplay that they're kind of moving. Wow, Natalie, you just designed a board game here. Good job.
I mean, the video game that comes to mind for me actually is that it's a game called the Nindo. It's from 16-bit, which is like my Super Nintendo. That's my kind of that's my pocket for video games. But it's set in medieval Japan around late 16th century, and you're a ninja, and you're wandering around Japan, and every NPC you interact with, there's a relationship meter, like what we're talking about. And the more you interact with them, the more likely they're going to join your party if you invite them. And depending on like which faction they're aligned to and what kind of profession they have, they're going to like you more or like you less. And they might join your party and then take off right away, or they might be loyal to you forever. And you take them with you as you quest around and go fight people and stuff. And so it has that kind of like cool element where they're an NPC where you go and talk to them, and you get like kind of a standard speech bubble, but you also are having an effect that affects kind of long-term how things go. So that's definitely, I'm sure, kind of existing in the back of my mind as we're like trying to sort out how villagers work.
Yeah. Because I mean, my first thing was just thinking of like playing The Sims. I didn't play as many video games. I played the original Baldur's Gate. I haven't played the new
original
Baldur's Gate.
Wow.
I remember that.
I'm like, yeah, video game systems have gone far beyond my capabilities at this point. So turned on Baldur's Gate 3 and was like, okay, somebody else play and I'll watch.
So there's this new game, Dragon's Dogma, that just came out. I haven't played it, but I've kind of been following it, watching reviews. It does this really interesting thing with these pawns. So when I create a character, so it's like an open world RPG, a little bit like Skyrim or Elden Ring. But when I create a character, I also have to create a pawn. And this pawn is like an NPC that like kind of follows me around and is in my party and all that stuff. But that NPC will kind of learn different things based off of like my action. So if I find this treasure chest on top of this mountain somewhere, the NPC will kind of learn it. And then what happens is other players, when they are playing the game, they also create a pawn, but then they can hire other people's pawns. So they can go to this like place. And then, so like Natalie, you could hire my pawn who knows where that chest is. And then when you're walking by the mountain, that pawn in game will be like, hey, there's a chest over here. I know there's a chest over here. It's really, really good. The game apparently has a lot of like jank and some other issues, but everyone loves that kind of like this pawn mechanic, because when it works, it's like that moment where it's like this magical thing. It's very cool. Anyways, just a little aside there.
Yeah.
A little video game aside. I mean, it's all games, right? So, anyways, I guess before we close out for the day, just wondering over the last month if you guys have played any, like it's been a busy month, so probably not as much board game playing, but if there's any board games that you've played, had like some neat board game experience over the last month, or any board games you're looking forward to other than, of course, our own games.
Nathan always plays games.
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind for me is I played only essentially the 2-player version, turn-based version of Captain Sonar, and that was my first time kind of experiencing it. So I got like a little taste of what it would be like playing the full 8-player complement in real time. Just sounds like it would be completely bananas, and that would be, that's like maximum player interaction.
Yeah.
But even just playing that, it was really cool seeing how 4 different responsibilities interact to basically make a core version of Battleship, right? So yeah, that was very cool.
We so once every couple of weeks, a couple of us who live in Kelowna will get together and play games like Open Owl people. Nathan brought a game called EOS, right?
Soul, is that what we're talking about?
Soul, sorry.
Last Days of the Star.
Soul, Last Day of the Star.
Oh, yeah.
It was a fun thing. The map was kind of twisting. Like the actions were really quick. The turns were really quick. I think if you played with someone who like spent their time thinking about like 100% optimizing their turns, it would be a slog, because then I don't know. The game's not meaty enough, I think, to justify the like long turns. But for like, Nathan, Taryn, and I, we were all just like, we were going pretty quick, and I liked that game, at least for kind of a one-off. I also bought Wormspan on the weekend. I haven't played it yet, but
April
I set
Fools.
it up.
No.
Yeah. No, I
Jamie Stagmeyer did his video for his 10 favorite Wormspan memes. So
yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
That's what comes to mind.
But here's the thing though, man, why is it so much work to set up board games? I just want to know that. Like even like a Wormspan, I was like setting up. It was after the initial setup, but just like setting it up, it's just like it's a lot of work to set up board games.
Well, we got used to Mythwind, so now we're spoiled and wondering why everyone else can't set up a game in 2 minutes.
I've wondered if there's a way to like do some sort of like quick setup for one-off type games. I bet there is. Maybe it doesn't lend to it as much as our kind of campaign style games, but anyways.
Yeah. Mostly my biggest games, I think, of the past month was I got to learn and play on Mars, which was great. I do like big chunky ones, and we got a couple rules wrong, which would have helped with resources, so that everything was very expensive. And then also played Station Fall, which for some people they say it's like the gamer's party game. I don't know if it was for everyone. It's kind of chaos, but I came into it like knowing it was chaos, and we played at 7 players for all new players. Probably would have done like 4 or 5 is the sweet spot for that. And then no one got to play as the Astro Chimp, unfortunately, when we drew characters. So I think other than that, is there anything else you guys want to talk about for the future of the campaign? Anything we didn't cover for Mythwind?
I'm good. This is great. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for showing up, Nathan. No. I was like, what's the word to say when you're ending things? It's always awkward. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, Nathan. And again, Brendan and everybody else that tuned in on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And we will see you again next month.
See you.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Owl About Games, a board game podcast brought to you by Open Owl Studios. You can tune in every first Wednesday of the month for our latest episode. I've been your host, Natalie, and I'm co-hosted by Brendan. And that's a wrap on this episode. See you next month.